Hello everyone, SirMonkeySuit here, back again with Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex Season 2. We are on Episode 2, and in the last episode, we started off very strong. And like I said last episode, it wasn't too dissimilar from the start of Season 1 either, where we're just thrust into the action immediately into this sort of mission. Obviously, they were held back for a lot of it because of what had happened at the end of Season 1, but eventually they were actually, pressed to actually go in on a sort of judgment call because they had to get stuff done quickly, otherwise people would start dying. Now, because of that, Section 9 have sort of but they are now a fully fledged unit again, and the Prime Minister is actually giving them funding for Section 9 so that they can actually, do the best they can with the best equipment, everything like that, which is really, really good. The Tachikomas are back, which I'm fucking excited for. I'm so happy that they're back. You know what I mean? I would have missed them too much if they never returned, but yeah, it's great that they're back. And of course, the introduction of a new organization that is going to be the sort of center, I feel like, for the rest of the season, which is the Individual 11, and what their whole end goals are, I don't know, but according to the first episode, it seems as though they want to have the refugees removed from the country, and it's under sort of this idea that, it's because after World War III, they were brought in to help rebuild the country and everything like that had been devastated, but because of the amount of people, like the amount of refugees that are in there, the unemployment rate's going up, the taxpayers are getting annoyed because they're rising taxes now because of the amount of unemployment and everything like that, and they're afraid of, obviously, refugees taking their jobs and everything like that, which is very similar to real life, what's happening right now, especially in Europe. So it's very close to home, but yeah, so I've got some really cool theories going on with Individual 11, and like how, because obviously it was only one episode, we haven't got the ins and outs of what exactly they are. But my theory is that I feel like it's almost like a hive mind thing going on. That there's one person at the top who's programming in orders, and it's got a group of people that he uses to sort of to follow those orders, and so we'll see if that ever comes out and I'm right about it. Then if that is the case, then great, but yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, I've got nothing else to really talk about, so we're going to get straight into episode 2 of season 2. So if you want to go watch the reaction, link is in the description below. There's also the link to the full length if you want to watch it in full, then the offer is there for you. But yes, nothing else to really talk about, so we're going to get in episode 2, see what we get. So without further ado, let's go.
Where all the colors are ocean.
Okay, episode 2 of season 2, and that was a really unexpected episode, because it was like following obviously somebody that we just didn't know throughout the whole episode, and even like Section 9's sort of involvement in the episode was very scarce, and obviously at the end we realized exactly what Section 9 was up to, and I was asking throughout the episode, like, what are they doing here? And the idea was that they were inspecting this person to obviously try and find a culprit of terrorism, everything that involved in the Individual 11, and whatever. But seeing it from the guy's perspective actually puts a really interesting sort of spin on it, because I feel like for like the entirety of season 1, I felt like it was always from the perspective of someone from Section 9, or Section 9 as a whole. And because they are this government sort of outfit that they're on the outside of the government, kind of also in the terms of kind of stuff that they do, but because they're a part of like the government and organization anyway, we don't really get to see it from the perspective of the people on the ground. And I think this is a perfect time to actually introduce it, because you have this whole refugee thing going on, seeing it from someone who's at the lowest of the low, almost. But following this guy, like, the guy is living in a delusion of what he dreams is reality but isn't. So the idea that he wants to be this sort of hero going out there to change the world by taking out a guy who he thinks is behind it all, or you know, something like that, which, you know, during the episode I likened what he was thinking to the thoughts that the Laughing Man was thinking at points, where he was you know, when he went away for 6 years, and the Laughing Man went away for 6 years, it was because he kind of just, it was like he had to give up and try and forget everything that, you know, that he knows the truth to be, because he can't find a way to change it, to find a way to get it out in the public eye. And I feel like this guy was seeing, like, having the exact same thoughts, except the Laughing Man was actually doing stuff. He was the Laughing Man was putting his thoughts into action at times, and trying to change things by actually doing it. The difference with this guy is that everything that he was wanting to do, everything that he wanted, was completely a delusion inside of his head. It was a fantasy, and something that he would just never go through with. And, you know, it's one of those things where, like, it's a creepy episode, because in a way, like, you know, you're kind of following a guy that is very much an outcast, someone who's like this guy could easily become, you know, like a serial killer. That's the kind of guy that you can think like this guy would turn out to be. And maybe, like, you know, like, maybe not. Maybe that's the wrong way of putting it. I feel like he's the kind of person that, I guess, maybe not would turn out to be a serial killer, but could. So the idea that, like, you know, all of these negative thoughts and emotions almost running his life is kind of one of those things of whether or not you act on those negative emotions, if you act on them. And in a lot of ways, that's kind of what he was not doing. It's not healthy the way that he is living his life, because he's still sort of, you know, allowing those negative emotions to sort of fill him up with this sort of, like, these, you know, whether it be hatred or anything like that, or rage at certain people, seeing things from the perspective. It's not too different from the way I feel like a lot of people live their life anyway. Like, we're always just, like, sitting here, like, you know, crucifying politicians, you know what I mean? Because it's just like, oh, they're fucking these pricks, these bloody corrupt bastards. You know, so, and it's, you know, like, we have those things, just like, if this guy just wasn't around anymore, it would just fix everything. And obviously that's not true. You know what I mean? It's not just a case of just one person completely fucking everything up. It tends to be, you know, like a group of people or a hierarchy, like I was talking about last episode. But at the end of the day, this was a guy who came, you know, especially after a war as well. I mean, that definitely doesn't help things. A lot of the time, like in war, it's one of those things that you come back from, and if you suffer from PTSD or anything like that, that obviously just sort of exacerbates things as well. And coming back to a time, he was coming back with, I think Battle said that he came back, like, you know, with an STD, and I guess because of that he ended up having an operation for, you know, getting prosthetics and everything in his legs. You know, but he's just living in a delusion of like, in his own head. Like, even when, you know, he has that, you know, that prostitute or whatever, and she like sort of refuses it for going any further, and, you know, he gets chucked out, sort of, you know, beaten up a bit, and the guy just takes the money off him. And, you know, Gino is talking about, like, you know, it's for my wife and kids and everything like that. He doesn't have any wife and kids, at least not what we saw. I'm pretty sure that was just almost like just another thing that's in his head that he just can't get past, in a way, you know what I mean? Like, for his wife and kids, it's something like, I wonder if it came out like spontaneously, like something he didn't actually mean to say, because obviously he was talking about how the job that, you know, you get, like, obviously in the World War since then takes everything away from you. So I wonder if that is actually, if that was something that he didn't mean to say. It was just like something like from a thought of what he used to have and now he doesn't have anymore. And obviously all of that, again, combined is just, you know, fueling that just negative sort of emotion, that negative life that he's living, and just making it worse, because he has all of these delusions in his head of what he can do, what he feel like he wants to do, but he could never just actually do it. He can never just bring himself to do it, you know what I mean? And having that whole story be at the forefront while Section 9 is doing stuff in the background is actually really cool. A really cool sort of concept for an episode. You know, and I think what is interesting as well is that I'm going to assume that the individual episodes are like standalone in a way. Although I guess they did bring up the individual 11, which I'm assuming is the overarching sort of plot. But the I like the fact that it seems more head-on in terms of like the, you know, it's going along with the overarching plot. Like for a lot of the standalone episodes, things from the standalone episodes in the first season did come back. Like some things did come back towards the back end of the season, but there was a lot of standalone episodes that didn't really come back. And a lot of them just kind of were used for character development for certain characters and stuff like that. But it seems as though, like, in this one, in this season, like, there is clear connection of what is happening at the same time. Everything with the refugees, and then you go into the sort of the mind of one. And then for the second episode, and you see, obviously, the aftermath of what happened in the first episode, and everything coming together in this episode where they're inspecting this Gino guy for possibly being a terrorist of one of this whole overarching plot, which... you know, which is really, really cool. You know, I could be wrong, and the individual could be the complex one, but then I would feel like it was an interesting choice if that is the case for this one to be, you know, compared to a complex episode, because of how it was done. It feels more like a standalone episode that is connected heavily with the first episode. You know, so yeah, but it's just interesting sort of, you know, things that cropped up. Like, even though Gino is like delusional and everything like that, he sees the human within Motoko, which is interesting. He doesn't see that within anything else. And I don't know if it's just a case of like he's just thinking of her as just a very pretty woman, and therefore he sort of relates that to being a human because like he finds her appealing, you know. Because it's just an interesting, like, because if you take that out of the picture, if he was actually truly, I think that the strong bit about this episode was the fact that when I didn't, like, because for the whole episode I was confused as to actually what the hell is going on, like what is real, what is not, and I think that's what is obviously strong about the episode, because I think it was trying to convey that. But the thing is with Gino, because he's spouting all of this, you know, I know the truth, I know all of the truth, I'm the only one that does, and he's able to pick out Motoko from everyone, and just when he's randomly walking down the street, and like obviously Section 9 turn up as like, you know, posing as like an escort service, that like, you know, he picks Motoko out and even though she's fully prosthetic, she's the human, like she's the one that he sees as human. And it's interesting because I think that's a dynamic with Motoko that I've said in the past season, that is like I feel like there's a fight going on inside of Motoko where she struggles with that whole fact in a way, you know, because obviously she was given that prosthetic body when she was a child essentially. So it's interesting, that one, and it just runs through that whole thing of like what could be, what couldn't be. I feel like if you're looking at it from a meta perspective, I feel like they must have done that on purpose to point out Motoko as the human one from the crowd. But also I feel like if you're looking at it from Gino's perspective, like from us looking at him as a character, because he's delusional, that he could just be saying that because he finds her appealing physically and whatnot, you know. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. You know, it did took me a while to figure out, yeah, those were just visions of what possibly he wants to do eventually when the day comes, and the day never comes. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's just an interesting sort of take on an episode that I did enjoy. It may, like, you know, don't get me wrong, it may not like seem that way when I'm watching it, because I'm trying to, in the reaction itself, I am trying to wrap my head around what is actually happening. I had to literally go back through it again just to get a more solid idea of what I was watching, so that obviously I can talk about in the post-score, because otherwise I would have been like stuff happened. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, but yeah, really, really good episode. I mean, yeah, he talks about some points like, going to war and everything wasn't as a case for being a hero or doing things for the right reasons more than just keeping the higher ups or certain parties in power. And that he sees that obviously from his perspective. I feel like they all do, like, maybe not, a lot of them do. I feel like his friend, for example, the guy who actually got, like we saw on TV, got arrested. It was interesting. I feel like that was something that I thought was connected to the individual ego thing from the individual 11. But because obviously he was like happy about it, and I was like, wait a minute. In a way, that doesn't really seem like that guy from before when we were seeing him before. But I think that's the point. I think the idea is that Gino and his friend, I think his Chinese name was Yang or something like that, guy with a ponytail, that if we were to look at it from that guy's perspective, it would be the same in a way. I wonder if that guy also lives delusions in his head, but instead, in this one time when he got arrested, he actually acted on his sort of fantasies, and that's obviously what he got arrested for this terrorist act. And when I was watching that sort of report or whatever, I thought they did mention that he was in, like, sort of somehow he was involved in the Chinese embassy plot thing that happened in episode 1, but I may have been wrong. The problem is that I skim through the episode again the second time through. I don't really actually watch the episode again because I just don't have time. But yeah, so if that is the case, I don't know if it was a separate event. But I mean, I feel like that's the kind of idea that I get, is that Gino's not the only one. It's just that some people hide it differently, and I feel like his mate, his friend, did the same thing, and he was doing the same thing. But yeah, I mean, they're just living a life of sort of like delusion and kind of paranoia, especially with like the locks on the door, and like literally just sitting in a room with white noise on the TV. You know what I mean? There's not even like it's a cold light. You're sitting in a cold room. You're just left with like, it's not a homely, warmly feeling. It's just like you're living in sort of resentment in this delusion, and it's not helping. And everything that he thinks about all the time just keeps spiraling into this sort of this depth of just negativity that he can't really get out of. And it's but yeah. So I mean, other than that, I don't have anything else. It was kind of an episode to really just kind of contemplate how the world, in a weird way, in a way you could call it a sort of a world building episode, because you're seeing it from a perspective of someone completely different. You know what I mean? Someone who's on the low end. So it was definitely an interesting episode. And whether or not this chairman Katakura is actually, if he actually is corrupt in some form or fashion. I mean, what he was talking about with that bald guy at the very start, even though that was a vision, we say that's the problem, is that we don't know if it's true or not. But Gino seems to think that guy, Chairman Katakura, is involved with that whole thing about, getting the taxes in and everything like that, Like he was talking about that, and obviously that is something that is big with the refugees and everything like that they're just sitting out enjoying life and everything while you've got these refugees on the, you know what I mean, and people living in poverty, and that they're just like sort of, being at the high end of, like, being government officials in some form or fashion, just basically hoovering in the money, and living that high life. But yeah, definitely an interesting episode, and I enjoyed it. But definitely enjoyed it. So yeah, I mean, I feel like this is maybe what Section 9 are doing. They're just trying to pinpoint some kind of connection to the individual 11, so obviously they can continue that investigation of what is going on there, and maybe their hunt down for the individual 11. But yeah, really, really cool. So if you do want to get access to episode 3 and 4 of season 2 right now, you can do by going over to my Patreon and getting the early access tier. That will give you links. Sorry, that'll give you reactions a week early. That's $5 a month. There's also the full-length tier if you want to watch any of my reactions in full and not just a 10-minute cut version. And then there's the exclusive tier where you can watch my movie reactions and things when I watch movies. So, you know, that's coming soon, so look forward to that. And there's also a link in the description for the Discord. If you want to get over there, then you can do. But that's all I've got. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.